first idea is that when you go for um, to write your paper one IB examination, what do you expect in a question paper? If you're a whether you are a standard level student or a higher level student, your paper one will have two texts, okay? Two non-literary text types. Neither of the text is going to be a poetry or an extract from a drama or an extract from a novel or an autobiography or essay. They are all going to be non-literary texts, which means they are going to be probably advertisements, infographics, articles, opinion pieces, web pages, maybe images, um, perhaps comics, um, maybe maybe an encyclopedia entry, maybe a dictionary entry. So anything but anything literary. And both the SL and HL students will have the same text types in their exam paper. The only difference between an SL exam and the HL exam is the higher level students do both the texts and the standard level students respond to one of them. Now, the one of the most important things not to miss noticing in your paper one examination is something called the guiding question. Because in its current state, the paper one component is called a guided literary analysis, GTA, or guided textual analysis, sorry. Literary analysis is the literature. So GTA is what it is called. Therefore, the examiner is absolutely looking for you to respond to the guiding question, the scope of the guiding question. So, what do you expect to see? An SL student will see two text types, each followed by one guiding question. They have to select one from the two. The higher level student will have the same two text types, each followed by a guiding question, but they have to write analyses for both. And SL students get 1 hour 15 minutes, and the higher level students get 2 hour 15 minutes. That's what to expect in the question paper. Never assume that you know what is the content of the question paper and skip any of the sections. If the paper which is given to you has got 4 sides, 5 sides, 6 sides, go through each of them carefully. That's what you should expect from your question paper. The next point that I would like to draw your attention to is, since we spoke about standard level students having an option of which text to pick, there is also this consideration of how to exercise choice or how much time to invest in exercising choice. Although there is no hard and fast rule, and I do not want you to be saying that, oh, Ms. Vidya said you can spend 5 minutes on this, and therefore I will spend 5, not less, not more. It's not a writing, it's not cast in stone, but roughly it is expected that when you are given 2 options, you would take about 5 to 7 minutes from that 1 hour 15 minutes time to consider both of them. So let us say if you have a comic strip and if you have an article, you are roughly glancing through both of them for about 5 to 7 minutes, considering which one to pick, right? So,
sorry to interrupt you. I just have a question. So for paper one, you said you can't get a literary text type. Does that include speeches?
No. So here is the interesting thing, that IB has a prescribed list of authors. Okay. So for instance, let us say William Shakespeare is a prescribed author by IB. Now, William Shakespeare's speeches you will not get in paper one because he's acknowledged as a literary contributor in the world of IB. But let us say anybody, Vidya, is not acknowledged by IB as a literary contributor, then a speech given by me can feature in your paper one
So
text.
you can't get a speech by like Martin Luther King or Michelle Obama or anything like that in your paper one, for example?
Generally, authors which are prescribed by IB, they are considered, literary contributors, and they do not become a part of the non-literary text type. So that's the general principle. I'm pretty sure. See, what you need to focus on is the fact that you analyze a speech for a speech, irrespective of whether Martin Luther King delivers it or Vidya delivers it, right? The reason that distinction exists is that if you were doing an individual oral and if you were picking up a speech by Martin Luther King, then that speech becomes a literary text and not non-literary. But paper one, speech is a valid non-literary text type. And I don't think you need to lose your sleep over preparing yourself whether I will see something written by, I don't know, Chimamanda Adichie or not. So that should not be your consideration. You should be focusing on getting the conventions of the speech right.
Yeah, so I want to just ask one more question in addition to what just now Myra asked. So, like the prescribed list of authors, can we find it online or?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay. That list is there.
yeah,
Okay, okay, yeah.
yeah. It's
Okay, so,
called PLEs.
so it's really rare and it can only come, and I can only get a speech if it comes from a prescribed IB author, but I should still know the conventions for a speech.
Absolutely, because it doesn't matter whether you are, see, you should be noticing a call for action, whether a speech has a circular structure, whether there are rhetorical questions or not, irrespective of who has delivered it. Like I told you, the distinction between literary and non literary is made or becomes crucial only for IO. But the thing for you to understand is, you're not going to get a drama excerpt, a poetry excerpt, or a novel excerpt in your paper one. But speech is a legitimate non-literary text.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So 5 to 7 minutes to make that negotiation. Sometimes the choice for standard level students is easy. Like one text type totally knocks you out or it evades you. You're not able to relate to it at all. So the other one becomes your easy choice. Sometimes if both of them are compelling, you're able to decode them equally well and you're excited about both of them equally well. I think that is when the choice becomes a little difficult to make. Um, and so I think a little more of, okay, what comes what is the topic? So let us say there is a comic and there is a web page. Let's say the comic is about diary entries, and let us say the web page is about slavery. Now, interestingly, both of them you are able to see conventions and their features and everything, but you have a little more information on the topic of slavery. Like you understand slavery, you've probably studied about it through other subjects or out of interest of your own. Then you should pick a text type which is speaking about content that you're familiar with. Because a perceptive inference comes to people who are familiar about the topic of the text type. So when both the texts are making equal sense, choose one which has got a friendlier topic, something that you have read about, something that you hear people around you talk, and all of that, right? So 5 to 7 minutes of this, another 10 minutes for close reading. Now, what do I mean by close reading? Is literally, entering the text, having eyes and brain open only for what it is showing. So reading the lines, reading between the lines, seeing patterns. Oh, they are talking about this topic. Oh, there's another evidence about the same topic. So I always tell my students that close reading is the metaphor for close reading is like dots. Okay, so the first idea that you see in a text becomes your one dot. The another idea you are able to see in the text, another dot. So now, as you progress through the text, there are loose dots on your board, right? Now, when you read the text for the second time, or maybe in the first time itself, some of the dots start joining. And you become aware that, hey, I think this author or this creator is being satirical. I think what they are saying and what they are meaning is different. Now, that's the conclusion. You cannot jump with one dot, right? There should be many dots saying, pointing in the same direction. So that 10 minutes of close reading is valuable in order to come up with a guided textual analysis, which is strong on criterion C and strong on criterion A. So never think, I mean, typically students or anybody, they feel that optimum utilization of time is the moment you get the paper, start writing. Not at all. Most of my students who are now in their second year of TP, they come back and say that, ma'am, I spent 20 minutes deciding what argument I'm going to make, and that is why my paper came out this well or this strongly. So coherence is an important criterion of all your IB English assessments, whether it is paper one, paper two, or IO, and therefore 10 minutes plus or minus 2 or 3 minutes is an absolute valuable investment of your time. Point number 3, the importance of close reading and annotation and its role in focus and analysis of the essay. Like I said, reading doesn't just mean that your eyes are involved. Close reading means your pencil or pen or whatever it is that you have in your hand is involved, because you are going to identify, hey, I sense this here. I think I sense cynicism. I don't think that this writer or this creator of the infographic has a positive approach towards the person or policy that they are talking about. Make a note of it, because these are the things when you come back for your second reading or third reading, they will speak to you. And these are the visual um, aids for you to know that, hey, I identified this point. Did I use it in my analysis or I forgot? So unless you have pointed and annotated these things, you will not be able to remember what was your original plan. So it is very, very important that you read the text that you have chosen at least 3 times, at, and all the time with a pen or a writing implement in your hand, all the time making notes or annotating and kind of deciding that, listen, when I write my introduction, this is my overarching thesis. This is my overarching idea, because I see so many evidence that can support that argument. For that, annotation and close reading is very, very, very important. Number 4, planning the introduction well so that it is not only an effective commitment for what you want to do, but also becomes a checklist which keeps you on the task. Now, why do I say this? Like I told you, that when you are annotating or close reading, you're identifying this, right? You're saying symbolism, you're saying metaphor, you're saying vivid imagery, you're saying short sentences, simple sentences, complex sentences, you're saying rhetorical questions. Now, and like I said, that you are on your own with that paper. That paper is your only companion. Now, the thesis statement in your introduction paragraph is your guide, right? For the next 1 hour, whenever you are nervous, did I do a complete wholesome job? There is nobody else who can answer that question but your thesis statement. So if you pick up, let us say one of the texts that comes to my mind from my recent interaction was a comic strip with many individual panels. The cartoonist was Grant Snyder, and his topic was notebook. So he was that comic strip was about journal writing, diary entries. And each panel was about what are the different uses that you can put diary entries to use. Okay. Now, I have to be so careful in framing my introduction in saying that, hey, you know what? When I look at the 26 panels that are there in this comic strip, some of them sounds like those are some of the things that a girl will say to her diary. Some of the things sound gender neutral. A girl can say, a boy can say. Some of the things an adult can use it for. Some of the things are very childlike. Now, if you are making a note of this, and if your introduction includes a wholesome, nuanced commentary that the given comic strip by Grant Snyder seems to be addressing the topic of the importance of using a notebook or a journal or a diary. And it is very interesting that going by the panels um, of the text type, the text is targeted at both adults and children alike. They are targeted both, they are targeted at all gender, they are gender neutral or targeting multiple genders alike. Now, when you put that kind of an commitment, a wholesome commitment in your introduction, then your rest of the analysis only has to justify that introduction.
Miss,
As a
I think Ria has a question. She's raising her hand. Can we take that?
sure.
Hi, ma'am. Sorry for interrupting, but could you please advise us on a structured approach towards, like, planning the essay structure? Because, I mean, one of the problems that I face is that like ramble a lot in my essay. So it's like I'm doing the analysis while writing. So while that keeps me in a flow, I feel like that also increases the word count of the essay exponentially. So how do you suggest us to plan the structure?
So that's what I was telling you, Ria, that it is very important that you spend that 12 minutes in annotating so that you have decided. And like I was telling with this comic a strip example, that you should be making a 2 point thesis statement or a three-part thesis statement, which says that, listen, I think this text is doing this. There was another um, charity appeal that comes to my mind um, about auto rickshaw funding and whatever. Now, that entire charity appeal had three sections. Okay, it had where the money of the contributors will go, how is it solving the problem, and it also shows where did the need for this comes from. Now, what it becomes the first 10-12 minutes, especially before you write down the introduction, you need to decide what will my thesis statement be in the introduction. In this case, if you can say something like the given charity appeal by whoever um, expects readers to respond to it by making donations. It is promising or it is committed to making life easy for women as well as empowering them to be contributory members of not just their families but of the society. Now, Ria, when you make that careful commitment in your introduction, you know that whatever evidence you identify, whether it is types of sentences, whether it is images, symbolism, rhetorical question, sensory imagery, whatever, needs to go into these directions, these two directions. One, that it is empowering women, providing them a way to stand on their own feet, make their own money. And two, by telling them that you do not have to be silent, unproductive members of your family. You can make a change in the status of your family. So your focus, Ria, needs to go into finding out what is the two overarching things that I would be saying. Your introduction cannot be something, or your thesis statement cannot be something which is visible to me. For example, if you say in your thesis statement that this charity appeal is asking people to donate money towards providing auto rickshaw for women, that's not a thesis. That is what anybody can clearly read. But after going through the content, if you have understood that, hey, they are promising an auto rickshaw, But by providing an auto rickshaw, they are saying two things. One, women can go to college and school and work because they are women. There are women auto drivers, so there is safety. And two, because women have been provided auto rickshaws, they can be useful members of the family. Now that needs to go into the introduction. So if you are saying something which is out there, which anybody can see, then the tendency will be to ramble and go on and on about it. But if you have made a careful 2 point or a 3 section inferential thesis that, hey, this text is talking about this, but through that, through its content, it is managing to do these 2 or 3 things, then that's what will keep you anchored. That's where your paragraph division and all of things can go. So
Right.
that's why we come back to the point of spending good time in seeing the dots being connected. If you still have, after 3 readings, if you still have dots which have not been connected, like there are 15 dots, but only 3 have been connected, it means you're still missing the point. Go back to reading until majority of your dots have connected into 2 or 3 patterns. You're not ready for your effective introduction. Like when you watch a movie, you're watching a 3-hour movie. It has got subplots. But when you come back and tell somebody that, you know what, majority, I think the entire movie Dil Dhadakne Do was focusing on marital relationships. Right? Why do you say that? Because although there were subplots, although many people were doing many different things, the focus kept coming back on marital relationships between different people. So inference making is what IB is expecting you to do. That's why they give us 2 years, not to tell the most obvious thing in our introduction, because that you will do on the first day of your grade 11. Slowly, we need to train ourselves to see things inferentially.
Right. Ma'am,
All
also
right.
this one more thing, quite often, like especially like our teachers in school, they constantly tell us that we should be mentioning the literary techniques, like for example, visual imagery, figurative language, etc., in the introduction, in our thesis
Yeah.
statement, along with in the topic sentence. But what if like we have like a lot of literary techniques we want to talk about? Then can we choose some umbrella terms, and what would those umbrella terms be looking like?
So 2 things. One, topic sentences and literary terms are 2 different things. Topic sentences are the first sentence of your every paragraph, where you are signposting or you are committing to the examiner that when you read this paragraph, this is what you will find me doing. So that topic sentence doesn't feature in your introduction. Now coming back to spotting techniques. Now you have to understand that a visual textual text, like let us say infographic, right? So an infographic will have a lot of language, can have a lot of language, and will also have graphic elements, right? So the smart thing to do is, once again using the dot metaphor, let us say that one of the infographics has got or uses icons very interestingly. It uses icons to support what it is saying in language, right? And then the other linguistic technique that it is using is, let us say, a lot of statistics or data backed argument. Now, these are the overarching 1 or 2 techniques that you have identified, but you obviously are not going to say that this is all that is. So, what you can or what you should do is say, this analysis will discuss how visual elements like icons and graphic elements like charts and graphs and textual elements like irony, amongst other linguistic elements, have been used in order to show how substance abuse in sporting activities can ruin a sportsman's career and their prestige. So you offer the specific term for something that you see recurring. So if you see a lot of symbolism and if you see a lot of um, I don't know, subheadings or whatever. You know, if you see a lot of something happening, list that in your introduction and always top it up or wind it up by saying amongst other visual elements or amongst other linguistic elements, and tell the examiner that my focus is going to be this, but I'm going to bring up other evidence also in order to do this. Does that make sense? I'm going to assume that that makes sense. Okay. Point number 5, understanding what each criterion expects from the students. Like I'm pretty sure that you by now know that most all language and literature assessment components have 4 criteria. Paper 2 also has got 4 criteria, but the criterion B has got 2 divisions. It's B1 and B2, but we'll come to that when we come to that. Paper 1 certainly has got 4. Let's start from, let's say, the bottom, because it always feels like, okay, I know what when they say language, what they understand. So let's start with the no-brainer. So criterion D, or the 4th criterion, is called language. It's worth 5 points. What do the examiners look for in this? Is that your vocabulary is level appropriate. Remember, you're studying English as the language A, which means it's not your second language. It's not your language acquisition. You're studying English through your exposure to both language and literature. And it is assumed that our first language is our language of thought. It's that language in which we think. So it needs to have that level of sophistication and range, which means you should be able to understand that, listen, I'm writing an analysis, and it is a formal written piece. And therefore, I will not use any slang or any contractions or any other elements which are either used in the informal register or casual register. So that's one of the things to keep in mind when it comes to language. The other pitfall to avoid in this criterion is don't use words for the sake of using. So just because somebody is reiterating that this is your first language, and this is the language that you're expected to think in, and therefore you should sound this, fantastic knower of the language. Do not get over ambitious and use terminology that doesn't fit the context. Some of the things which trigger me when I read on the paper is these words which are not fit. So somebody will say plethora of choices. Plethora is a big quantity. And you're looking at a single text. I don't think it has got plethora of this one to offer. Wide-ranging techniques or effective techniques make sense, but plethora and myriad are words which don't really fit this context. Even topically, when you want to say sarcasm, say sarcasm. When you want to say irony, don't say comic, because irony and comic or comedy are 2 different things. Irony is a variant of comedy, but comedy has a different intention. So unless you're completely sure that this word fits the context well, do not use it. Because if you see the strands of criterion 4, it is both varied, but it is also effective, which means the word needs to belong to that context. You are not showing off your vocabulary out of context, right? A little above that is the criterion C, which is focus, coherence, and organization. I always tell my students that whether it's your paper 1 or your paper 2, or for that matter, your individual oral or higher level essay, all your analysis or your response is like a lawyer presenting a single argument in the case. Everything needs to go in the same direction. And which is why, again, I will go back to that point where I said that plan your introduction and your thesis statement, because that is the anchor which is going to hold it together. Take time, think which are the two sub points which I will defend throughout my four sides of this analysis. Let it hold it together. Don't say many things running all in different directions. Guided textual analysis is not what all you can see in the text. It's not a line by line commentary. It is a single cohesive argument. You are saying that, hey, this article, this opinion piece that has been written, it sounds like a very informed and a balanced piece of commentary on the political reality of a certain country. But you know what? I see bias in it. I see that the writer of this opinion piece is taking a one sided position and he's taking a very popular position on it. Now, everything that you say should be coherent and focused on proving that while this writer is presenting the pro and the con, the anti and the whatever of this issue, but you know what? Scratch the surface and you will figure out that this guy is biased or prejudiced. Now, that's what Criterion C uh, rewards you or awards you for, to keeping your analysis coherent. Topic sentences become an important strategy in that. So just like how your introduction is the anchor for your three or four sides of analysis, the topic sentence is your anchor for the paragraph. So if, let us say, like I have already started talking about that infographic, that one of the things that the infographic does is that it discourages the players, or it says that, listen, players, it's not that always substance abuse in sports is a conscious choice. Sometimes you get tricked into it. You may not be even knowing that you are doing it, but you get tricked into it. So my topic, since that is something, that's a thesis that I've furthered in my introduction paragraph. My paragraph topic sentence would say, in order to alert the sports people to be aware about what they are using in terms of drugs and supplements, the author uses icons and testimonies. Now, this is a topic sentence which tells the examiner that in this paragraph, the student is going to be focusing on discussing how the players and the sports people are being empowered and how they are being empowered with the help of, what did I say, icons and testimonies. So it is very important. Again, using or choosing a topic sentence is not a matter of firstly, secondly, thirdly, fourthly, fifthly. It is not just writing something. It is about, what am I going to defend in this paragraph? So everything is a careful choice. Think of it like how you pack for a trip. You don't just open a suitcase, put it on a desk, open the cupboard and just pull anything and stuff it in the suitcase. No, right? You plan that, hey, I saw the itinerary. First day is an adventure trip. So I think I need a track pant or something sporty or something cotton. The exposure is going to be the sun. Or the next day is a dinner in a fine dining restaurant. So you're making that conscious choice while packing the suitcase, right? You can't be not careful while packing your guided textual analysis, which is worth 20 marks, which is worth about 35% of your final grade. It needs time. So don't just start engaging into writing, but engage in what will I deliver and how, and which point will come first and what will come next.
Sorry, Miss. I have a question regarding infographics. Personally, I find infographics, they can be quite overwhelming because there's so much information presented to you and there's so much going on. And regarding the conventions of an infographic, like, it's not like an article where there's guided subheadings and like sometimes images, which can kind of which can kind of help lead your interpretation in a certain way. But with infographics, it's normally the conventions are like symbols and like really small writing and text boxes. And so how can you make your writing and your essay very concise? Like, are there certain techniques to help you find your thread for your essay when it comes to an
Okay.
infographic? Yeah, they can be kind of
Right.
challenging.
Is that Maya? Am I reading your name right?
Yes.
Okay, Maya, so the point is, like, I'm going to take everything back to close reading, and you will say, oh, whatever you ask her, she just, all roads lead to Rome only for her. But the point is, Maya, that anything that doesn't make sense, there is no shortcut. The point is, keep going back to it. So I can understand the first thing that you said is very valid, that sometimes infographics can be really overwhelming. But there's nothing that a little bit of practice cannot solve. So now that's a content of a later slide, but we can skip it when we come to it because I'm addressing it here. It's very important. It is the famous, the very infuriating and favorite thing about English preparation is that the students say, I don't know how to prepare. Of course, you know how to prepare. So if infographics overwhelm you, Maya, the day you decide that tomorrow I'm going to spend 30 minutes of my time revising for my English examination, go to the World Wide Web and say infographic examples. Okay, it'll throw up a bunch at you. Or you ask your English teacher, or you ask any resource. So let us say if you are associated with teacher or whoever, tell them, listen, I want to specialize in infographic. Can you give me three distinct types of infographics? One which is a very typical format of infographic, one which is slightly tricky, and one which has got more icons because whenever there are less words, I become nervous. Okay, select that, go through it, close read, find out. Like I'm saying, this infographic that I keep talking about is so etched in my memory because its topic was substance abuse in sports arena or area or domain, and it was called what was it called? Doped and Out. Okay. So one of the this one is Fountain Ink is a very interesting publication which publishes infographics. Very nice one. So you can probably take a look at them. Now the topic is very interesting. Some of the infographics come with their own subheadings also. Sometimes you'll have to. So like I said, Doped and Out was the topic of this. And the whole idea was substance abuse and whatever. It was very interesting that every motif. So I don't know whether you people have heard about Lance Armstrong. He was a cyclist and he was caught in a like very famous and celebrated, and then it turned out that he was caught in that substance abuse racket. So there is a icon in that infographic where the cycle is modeled as a syringe, so an injection, and this athlete, the athlete or the graphic of the athlete is on top of that injection. And the athlete's muscles are very unnatural and bulging. Now, Maya, if you are able to say, if you're able to spot in your close reading session, if you're able to see that this infographic is discouraging the sports people to not resort to this because it is unproductive and shameful, then this icon can help you make the argument that they are saying that if you can become a world renowned athlete, but riding on a cycle which is fueled or powered by drugs, you're going to look as unnatural and almost, I don't mean it disrespectfully, but almost ugly and disgusting and beefed up. And you make that point in order to support your single argument. So we go back to the point of what is the purpose of this infographic? What is it that this creator is trying to tell their reader about this topic? And now I will go and see what is this icon contributing to that. Have I missed something? So there is no shortcut to keep going back to the text types on the internet or whoever can provide you more of those text types and asking them to listen. I get nervous about opinion pieces. Can you give me a couple of opinion pieces, please? I don't know much about, politics. So can you give me opinion pieces or piece on the US politics? Go back to it. Maybe first time you read, collect your ideas, and then go back to the teacher or whoever is helping you and say that, Miss, I've been able to notice this. Is there anything else that I need to do? So there is no replacement for that system, that structure. It's like a workout. The first day you will not be able to reach the optimum level of that, but you go back the next day, you push yourself a little more, and then slowly you get there. So I don't know if I turned it philosophical and whatever, but that's where the effort needs to go.
So I just really need to practice familiarizing
Yeah.
myself with all
Yes,
the
and when you go to the World Wide Web to look for examples, say unique and uncommon examples of infographics. Why go by the popular ones? Why just so sometimes I see students only looking at advertisements of Coke or the more popular brands or products. I don't think IB is going to do that. I mean, they are not going to give you an advertisement which you are going to come across or decode so easily. They are going to, not because they are sadistic and they would like to knock you out for pleasure, but if you are showing that I have worked hard for these 2 years trying to decode some tricky stuff, they would like to give you something which is a little challenging. So don't go for the most easily available advertisement or opinion pieces on the internet. Go dig deeper. Ask your parents if they are reading, if they read newspapers. Ask them that what was the last very good opinion piece that you read in the newspaper? Can you share it with me? Then you go into your room and decode it on your own. So find the sources. That's very important.
and everything links back to the purpose
Body.
of
Yes.
so
Your thesis needs to link back to two things. One is purpose, or maybe sometimes you can make a commitment about audience. That listen, what I read in this infographic is that it is not just speaking to the sports people, it is also speaking to the politicians. It is also speaking to somebody else. So commitment on audience is also something interesting, which your analysis can be very usefully anchored around.
yeah, so it's how the elements bring out the purpose of the message.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, criterion B, which is analysis and evaluation of authorial choices. So I always tell my students that your analysis, whether it is paper one or paper two or IO, is only 50% about what is the author saying. The other 50%, sometimes 60%, is about how they are doing it. And the criterion that gets rewarded is when you talk more and more about the how of it. That yes, Vidya gave us a lecture on how to ace paper one. That was the broad topic of it. But she did it from the perspective of the teacher. Occasionally, sometimes she also spoke like, some of her students do. So these are the two commitments that you have made. One, that mostly what Vidya spoke about was about how to ace paper one. Sometimes she represented the teacher's point of view and the student's point of view. And now every authorial choice should be directed at establishing that Vidya's intention was to help you ace paper one. And for doing so, she sometimes spoke as a teacher. Sometimes she got into the shoes of the students and, gave the reasons or whatever, justifications or excuses or whatever. So that credit to authorial choice is the most important thing. Sometimes students score decent in criterion A, but because they don't bring up or bring out as many authorial choices, their criterion B scores kind of dips.
Now, I just had a quick question regarding the focus, coherence, and the organization aspect of criteria C. For that, when we're talking about authorial choices in the topic sentences, are we supposed to be mentioning, like, again, specific techniques that are used by the author, or is that supposed to be something that we just include in our analysis?
Wait, I didn't quite understand. So you're talking about the introduction passage, the paragraph?
No. For the topic sentences, for our body paragraphs, do we have to mention all of like the techniques, like for example, like visual imagery, metaphor, figurative language, etc., in the
Yeah, so
topic sentence?
in one paragraph, you will be dealing with one or maximum two techniques, right? So both those techniques should feature in the topic sentence. So you will say that in order to show that the artist should not get tricked into consuming drugs without realizing, the author uses testimonies and images. So that whole paragraph is going to be about testimonies and images.
Oh, okay, got it. All right. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
I also had another question for infographics. So sometimes when there are a lot of elements in the infographics, I try to mention all of them, and by doing that, I end up describing more than analyzing. So how to avoid that while also making sure that all aspects are covered without the body paragraph being too long?
Again, I don't think it needs to be, you need to be worried about the long or short of it. But certainly the word that you used, uh, description, that is something that I would like to warn you against. Don't describe what the examiner can see on the text. Okay. So say that in using the color blue, which is popularly associated with both calmness as well as, a subdued state of mind, for something like this purpose, the author is doing whatever. So you don't have to describe the color blue or explain what is how the blue color appears in the infographic, but it's evaluation or the essence of it. Now, using the color blue for a purpose exactly opposite to what it is usually used for enables the author to raise an alarm in their readers. Now, this is evaluative. This is not descriptive. You're not explaining a concept to the examiner. You're saying that when I saw blue, I went expecting something, but the creator surprised me. So don't go on and on. Sometimes I have seen students explain metaphor, they explain symbolism. No, don't tell us how that symbolism is so effective, right? So for example, I don't know. I mean, if we are making a point about an advertisement where a woman is seen in her house and she's feeling a little burdened about, everything that she has to do around the house after returning from a tough day at work. And what you are saying is that now what you are noticing is that she comes, like the woman is shown straight in the, I don't know, in the kitchen. Like she lands in the kitchen in the advertisement, in her work clothes. So it is very interesting that in spite of the fact that the image of a woman in her work clothes shows that she probably just returned from work, it contrasts with where she finds herself right now, which is in the kitchen, either getting the meal ready or doing the dishes, which is not which is not something that you will find other members of the family doing. Other members of the family, if they enter the kitchen straight after returning home, they're probably there looking for food, not cooking it. So so don't describe what is happening there and say that it is very effective that she's wearing a nice power professional suit. She's wearing a blazer, a satin shirt, and her pen and her laptop bag is still on her shoulders, and she finds herself amongst the gadgets in the kitchen. There is a microwave, there is a fridge, and this contrast in the setting has been effectively used in order to show that no matter how successful or how productive or hardworking you are outside, ultimately, when you return home, you have to enter the thick of these things. So you have to comment on that choice that the creator did not give the woman a chance to slip into other set of clothes or wear an apron or whatever. They showed the model in exactly the way they are. So you are crediting that choice as a very smart choice by the author. So don't explain. Explain the purpose that it is serving.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Now, the final and the top criteria, which is understanding and interpretation. How well have you understood the text? Are you just reading it for a charity appeal because um, the guiding question says it's a charity appeal? Or have you started locating the words which contribute to the idea of appeal? Now, are these words trying to evoke sympathy, or are they trying to make the audience feel guilty that, hey, before you saw this appeal, if you never felt like contributing, shame on you? How well have you understood the intention of the author? So, saying the most obvious thing will get you basic grades on criterion A, which is understanding and interpretation. But saying something perceptive but relevant, like not perceptive for the sake of perceptive, but relevant perspective, is what will get you a higher score. That listen, while they are saying that you should be thinking about these women and making this contribution and all of that. But if you see carefully, they are being very sarcastic. What they are saying is that till now, you people have not thought about doing it on your own. At least now, after reading this appeal, do something useful with your money. So that perceptivity is what fetches you a good score on criterion 1. Please remember, criterion A is not just about making inferences. It is also about supporting with evidence. So if you're just saying this text is doing this text is doing that, it is using metaphor, but not providing evidence, then you will get a low score on both A and B. But if you provide evidence and then talk about how effective that choice is, then you are strengthening your criterion A and B both. I'm going to now move out to slide number 6, which says how to prepare before the exam. And this is a part of what I was, trying to tell Maya about, that every day, instead of saying that I don't know how to prepare for English, there are no chapters to be read, there are no exercise to be sought, make a chart for yourself that weekly once, I will at least look at one visual text and one text heavy text. And maybe have a target for yourself. Not every time you prepare for English, you have to write a guided textual analysis. Sometimes you can just look at an advertisement or watch a short, those Pixar movies, and say that, oh, the overarching idea of this Pixar movie is this. This is how it has used characterization. This is how it has used visual. Not that you are going to get a Pixar movie in your exam, but I'm just saying that preparation for English can be as interesting and as varied as you can. I think I have become a very good movie critique or analyzer after I started teaching IB language and literature, because it is the same principle that you pick up from here and you apply there. So if you listen to an artist, if you have a favorite songwriter or somebody whose videos or music videos you like to watch, you can apply the same principle over there. What are they trying to do? There is a lot of angst in this video. Like one of my students showed me this one of Beyonce video where she's very angry after the heartbreak, and she's going around walking on the streets and breaking hand pumps and post boxes and all of that. So that angst is shown in so many authorial choices. And it's not that just because you're not going to see a music video in paper 1, if you are training yourself to make a thesis statement and look at authorial choices, it's a transfer of skill, it's a transfer of knowledge. You can totally do it or use it to your advantage. So the preparation before exam is, don't shy away from looking at advertisements. And sometimes don't just look at the popular IB advertisements. If there are magazines and newspapers at your home, open them. The most boring matrimonial advertisements, if you are able to look at them and say that, hey, you know what? My thesis can be that this matrimonial advertisement is so regressive in character. Look at the kind of qualities that it is looking for in a life partner. I think they are catering only to the middle class, middle or lower middle class. That is sharpening your brain. All your ads and all your pieces should not just come from the internet. They should come from regular sources around you. Like I said, ask your family members, what was an interesting feature or article that they read. Ask them to give it to you. You form an opinion or inference out of it. So that's how you prepare. Another way to prepare for an examination is read graded samples of paper one. They are available everywhere on the internet. Your teachers will be able to provide you. See how the students write introduction. What is the topic sentence? How do they move between one paragraph and the other? Ask them to give you an example or a sample of a poorly graded paper one. Are you able to see why did somebody get a 16 and why did somebody only get a 12? That's useful exam practice. So everything is not about memorizing formula or applying an equation. Everything, a lot of preparation is also about exposure. It's also about spotting the difference. How to write introduction paragraph. The introduction paragraph always needs to be anchored around the guiding question. So if the guiding question says, how does the text persuade its audience to its point of view, then your thesis or your inference needs to be about what is the author's point of view and who cares for this point of view. Who is he or she trying to address? So your thesis or your inference has to be something specific about the aspect that the guiding question is demanding from you. So don't waste your introduction in saying something very ordinary, very normal. It's a waste of time. Say something perceptive which you will use to defend later. So the first part of your introduction should always be just identifying the text type. The given text is a whatever, blah, blah, blah. What it is trying to do is this, this, this. Now, in my analysis, I will discuss how irony, short sentences, and the circular structure of an argument, amongst other techniques, have been used in order to do this. That should be your effective intro. Sorry. Yeah, it is very important to adhere to the guiding question, like I said, because every time you are doubting yourself that, am I on the right track? Am I on the right track? When you go to the guiding question and you go to your introduction paragraph and you see the thesis, are they all three leading in the same direction? If they are, then you are on the right track. Thesis, some things that can go wrong about the thesis is that you are saying the most plain and obvious and nothing perceptive about something. The infographic is making is telling how substance abuse is a harmful idea. Most obvious, 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 in the criteria. But if you say that they are saying that while substance abuse can be a good, quick shortcut to success, the cost is always prestige and health. That is inference. So don't say ordinary or unperceptive things. What can go wrong with addressing authorial choices? Don't just list that metaphor has been used, symbolism has been used, graphic weight is used, the author uses credibility. No, I mean, on their own, they have no role to play. Say something perceptive, that it is very interesting that the infographic features testimonies from sports people, coaches, drug companies, and judges or chairmen or I don't know, heads of various departments. Now, it is in including these 4 stakeholders in the process of fair play in sports, the creator is ensuring that the potential sports people become aware that don't think nobody is watching. And there are different perspectives to this drug abuse. You are only thinking about performance, but ethicality is something that needs to be ensured. So speak about the choices. Why is it important that they have not just used the sports person's perspective? Why have they used that the coach is also put to shame or behind bars or his career is also over? So it is very important not just to list, but talk about how this choice drives fear or shame in the reader that, shit, I don't want myself to see myself in that position. That is evaluation. The saying that threat or that warning hits you hard. That's evaluation. So That's something that can go wrong in criterion B, which should be prevented. Like I said, what can go wrong with criterion C is that you are spotting many things, but all of them are dots on the paper. Nothing is coming together. There is no clear commitment in your introduction passage, paragraph, and therefore everything is not anchored on it. So therefore there is no coherence. Therefore it is not focused on a single argument. So many a time, a commentary which brings up lesser number of features, an analysis which brings up lesser number of features, but which has a more focused argument, scores a lot more than many features, but not going in the same direction. So there is no point packing a bulging, overflowing suitcase with clothes that are not going to be useful for the events that you are attending. But even if you have 2 or 3 things, but they are all suited for the purpose that you are visiting, that is what matters. So quantity is never a good replacement for quality or lack of focus. That's something to keep in mind. We've already discussed what can go wrong in D, just a show off or this thing about your vocabulary is not the idea. I mean, I don't know in the 40, 50 or whatever amount or number of minutes that I have spoken. I don't think I have used all the words that are in my kitty, but I hope I have used the right words that made the point clear to you. That's what matters. That 4 sides of your guided textual analysis is not your resume of English language. But if you have used the right words, that's where the examiner gets impressed that, hey, they not only have the right vocabulary, but they also have good selection in the sense that what suits the occasion and what does not. I think I have, already spoken about what I have seen as major misses in my experience, which is like, much more many, but not focused and sharp, where your thought, your engagement with the topic, please understand, unless you know the topic of the text type well, you will not be able to make a perceptive comment. So it is important to know the world around you. There is a full-scale war happening around you. If you were reading an opinion piece around it, and if you did not know the basics of who's involved, who's taking what position, तो उसमें there will be some sarcastic comment and you will miss it because you're not aware of that topic. So there are so many things that that a 16, 17-year-old is supposed to know. Nobody expects you to be an expert on world peace. But IB or any academic program expects that you should know the basic of what's happening in history, what's happening in sports, what's happening in technology, what's happening in social media, lifestyle. A little bit of everything needs to be your exposure. And that's why I say that the content for English comes from life around you. One advertisement is just one advertisement. But when you know many things around you, you equip yourself for cracking more text types. So become aware of who's saying what and how around you. Like I said, something very, very good in a compelling analysis for me is a student who shows that they think about the topic, who are getting into the shoes of the audience and then saying that this is an effective choice for this reason. This is not an effective choice for that reason. So that, I think, in my case, has always been, that's given me more joy, and I've always given a higher score to an analysis which shows thought as opposed to volume. Of course, volume has got its own merit. The more features you are able to talk about, it has got its role to play. But if all of that is not making a perceptive single argument, then it's not compelling.